Alright, what is up guys? This is my second album review. This one is a classic review of Peter Gabriel's Melt. This album was released in February of 1980 by musician, humanitarianist Peter Gabriel, a icon from Britain who prior to this album released two solo albums after quitting the band Genesis, which was a very popular band in Britain. So a little bit of backstory about this is he left the group because he pretty much took the show, and the rest of the band members were not happy about that. And also at the time he had a kid, and actually very smart decision because of how much quality music he'd put out after leaving the group. Now, am I saying the music during the time he was in the group was bad? No, not at all. But this stuff here was actually extremely creative, and it really pushed himself, and he could do whatever he felt like since it was his own album. So this is the third one, called Melt. So let's dive right into it. So first off, before I even get to this album is very bleak. Most albums at least have a bit of like optimism to it, or a bit of, happiness, or a bit of sunlight, but this one is pretty much devoid of that. Like, just the album cover should give you an idea of how it's very pessimistic, very dark, and it's actually a really good masterpiece. So we'll take a look at this one. The first track, Intruder, should already give you an idea of how it goes. So it is a track about a thief going into a house and stealing possessions, personal ones or not. So this one is a really good track because you can hear his voice creaking over the track. It's like in like a horror movie, except he doesn't really, it's not with the intent to kill, more the intent to creep out the listener. Like, it was a really good track, and also it has some historical context to it. Phil Collins introduces his gated drum sound on this track. Yeah, Phil Collins. So Phil Collins is a very popular artist in the 80s. Actually the one that had the most top 40 hits in the decade. So he was extremely popular, and he had this specific gated drum sound whenever he played the drums, and this was the track that introduced that sound to the whole world. So a lot of historical context here, but like the way Peter Gabriel inflects his voice on this album is just amazing, and especially on this track, he stretches his voice in so many different ways that you would probably be very frightened the first time you hear it. Now, it might run like maybe 10 or 15 seconds way too long, but overall it's a very well done track. So then we have the song called Start, which is a really beautiful saxophone solo. Actually, one of the most beautiful tracks I've ever heard. So Gabriel here doesn't do the saxophone, he does the keyboard. But it is a really nice interlude track after the very heavy Intruder track. And then this one leads straight into the song called I Don't Remember, a song that talks about the experiences of a foreigner in a new country. But this foreigner is pretty troubled, as you can hear from the lyrics. Now, what's really special about this one is, based on the lyrics alone, you cannot tell whether the foreigner actually remembers the past experiences from his home country and chooses to forget about them, or cannot remember them at all due to traumatizing experiences. All of it sounds believable. In each track, Gabriel really puts emphasis on playing it out, almost like he did in his theatrical days, except through the emotions. You really feel like he is trapped here and he's suffering in this album. You can really feel it in his voice, as you can in the next highlight track, No Self-Control. This one, again, it talks about addiction. Now, addiction to what? It's a very open-end track. It really talks about, could be any addiction, really. It could be anything, and that's what makes this track so special. Only issue about this one is that next we have Not One of Us, another jab at something more political with foreigners. This one talks about the totalitarian countries like the Nazi movement or the Stalin time of Russia, where like people were kicked out or humiliated in the country if they didn't follow the norm, quote unquote, like have the same hair or same accent or same ideals as everyone else, and basically trampled over, individual thought. So this is what this song really pokes at. Another really political track on this album is the hit of the album, actually, Games Without Frontiers. This is the one that actually made it on the top 10 of the British boards at the time. It actually got to number 1 on the on the charts. So this one was the one that got the music video and everything on this album, which is really surprising, because this album from start to finish is not a very commercial one, not even Games Without Frontiers track that we're talking about, because this one, all this album is extremely like pessimistic and not very optimistic at all. So it's actually very surprising that this one actually got to the chart. But it's a very interesting album. What makes it really special is that it kind of likens politics to a children's game, and as you can see in today's world, and even back then, honestly, politics seem to be nothing but theatrics, honestly, which this one really plays on, even with like the childish whistling in the chorus and the childish vocal structure that Gabriel uses on it to emphasize that it's all nothing but a big joke. And Kate Bush really does a good job with the backing vocals on the chorus and everything. She really slips in the track well, so that was a very good addition. So another big highlight of this album has to be Family Snapshot. Yes, Family Snapshot. This one is a masterpiece of storytelling on this one. This one basically tries to retell the experiences and thoughts of an assassin. Now, which assassin are they talking about here? A lot of people point to this one being about the assassination of JFK in 1963, but actually Gabriel pointed out no, this was not, but you could apply this one to any killer, honestly, because all of this this song really talks about like the truth about a lot of killings, that maybe the killer just didn't get much attention as a kid, or maybe they had an issue with themselves that led them to do these things. And it's actually a really interesting track that makes you question about the motives of the killers. So overall, I've been pretty much praising this album from beginning to end, but are there any duds on this track? Anything that's a bit off about this track list? Well, if I had to pick one, there'd probably be Biko, the last track. This one is not saying it's bad, but the instrumentation can be a bit boring. Like, the subject matter's pretty good. It's about Biko, a South African politician from 1979 who sadly got shot and assassinated for his ideals, for fighting for freedom for the country. But even with the content being good, the beat is really repetitive and really stale, so it's not a very good track to end the album on. I understand it was very personal to Gabriel, but from a musical standpoint, it wasn't really that good. So, overall, yeah, this album is pretty fucking good. Like, minus some, small complaints, there's not really much bad to say about this album. Also, this is probably the album I would suggest to anyone trying to get into Peter Gabriel, because this is his magnum opus, definitely. This is the one where he really got, like, creative and let loose with his pen and with his composition with his friends and other artists. After this album, you've seen him, like, and I'm not saying he ever lost his originality, but you see him dipping more into world music, less into punk, less into, being loud and whatnot. So this is the last album where he, like, really had that, like, youthful resistance, quote-unquote. There wasn't much of it after this album, although there's still pieces of it in Security, pieces of it in So anyway, yeah, so this album is, for me, a 4.8 out of 5. It's a really good album and a very good listen. So, I appreciate you guys for listening for the review. If you like this, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications. We try to upload at least 3 or 4 times a week on the channel, and we have various types of content. We have music reviews, we have show reviews, we have some gameplay from time to time. This channel is all about variety. I don't want to stick with one particular kind of content. I like to diddle in everything I can. Alright, so thank you guys for listening to the video, and to the next one. Bye!